In Missouri, we're blessed with having the seventh longest highway system, second and third largest rail hubs in the nation, and the location is such that nobody's going to take that away from us. We are the crossroads, and we need to take care of this as an asset. Our message is clear that the business community wants to get something done with this. And we also know from polling that the population overwhelmingly realizes there's a need. There's an opportunity here to get something done, especially when you look at what was announced at the federal level and the consideration of things going on in the State House right here in Jefferson City. So there's a renewed interest. There's a stronger interest and momentum than we've seen in years gone by. And hopefully we can make something happen this year at the very latest next year.
Missouri Department of Transportation ranked number 9th in the nation on a poll from the Reason Foundation. So that speaks highly, 9th in the nation, and I'm proud of all of our people and all of you that try to help promote transportation in this state. But the problem is we're just not improving on the system, and each day it's just kind of like an old car. If you don't put tires on it and keep driving it, it's going to wear out on you eventually.
That in total, the port transportation system and these public ports support about 290,000 jobs annually, which gives rise to $15.7 billion annually in income and wages, and that's about $100 billion annually in terms of economic activity or gross state product. So when you look at the total size of your economy, about $100.6 billion of that is supported by your ports. This equates to about 34%, so a third of your economy is directly supported by the activity that's happening at your public port terminals.
One of our biggest projects currently is to build a loop track facility. It'll be a double loop track, so it should hold 2-unit trains, so 220 cars on 110 cars per loop. It will be a public terminal, and it would be the only public terminal currently between St. Louis and Memphis. So we want to make sure that we can offer this for anybody to come in and unload or load unit trains into barge or from truck to rail.
Big, large capital projects are hard to fund, and everybody's fighting for the dollars. In Kansas City, for example, we have a bridge that needs to be replaced. That's a big haul. So it's hard for the smaller groups to get in line and coordinate. We've been very lucky that this legislature and again MoDOT have been so supportive.
It costs a lot to operate and maintain a railroad. So I guess one of the challenges that is in front of us right now, every year, I won't belabor this too much, there is a tax credit that's out there that we continually ask for an extension, and it generally gets extended every year. So we'll be back up on the Capitol next month to see if maybe there's a way we can kind of make this permanent. But the benefit to those people in this room and the benefit to the transportation system is pretty significant, in that for every dollar we spend, we get 50 cents back and a tax credit. So what that allows is at the most local level, when we're serving a customer, for us to be able, instead of put in 10 ties, we can actually go out and put 15 ties in.
I think it's interesting to point that when we worked with the barge industry and we said, what's your number one infrastructure project? And the barge industry said that their number one infrastructure project is the Merchants Rail Bridge. The barge industry's number one infrastructure project is a rail bridge, and that's because in order for them to be competitive in the St. Louis region, they have to have competitive rail rates.
I like big planes. Our facility struggles with big airplanes. This is our answer. This is the new terminal that voters expressed their support of in November of 2017, just last year. We're working with Edgemore, the developer, to bring this terminal to fruition. It's been a slow process, but we're looking forward to having that facility come online in the next several years. It's a 35-gate single terminal facility, expandable to about 42, 6,500 space parking garage, double-level roadway out front, similar to like in Austin, Texas, or St. Louis, if you're more familiar. But creating the space in the gate areas for our customers to have the experience that they deserve.
Can we be a regional and state economic driver? Can we be a catalyst for the future? Can we be a catalyst and a partner with businesses and industry? I mean, we're here at the Missouri Chamber because of Commerce and Industry. We're talking about jobs of the future, and St. Louis runs one airport. The potential bidders that we're talking about here, potential operators, run airports throughout the entire world. Can they bring us an economy of scale? Can they bring us opportunities that we, running one airport, can't get to? But I keep thinking, how do we change the trajectory of our city, of our region, of our state, of our businesses? How do we create more jobs if we keep doing the same thing over and over again? Everybody knows the definition of insanity is to keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. We have to change. There has to be change, and we have to make the commitment to take into consideration the possibilities. As I said, we're still very early in the process, and our next steps are very critical.
So the National Safety Council, they released a State of the Safety report last summer. And this report shared national rankings. Missouri ranked last overall, and we were one of 11 states to receive a letter grade of F. It's not acceptable to receive a letter grade of F in my mind. This report recommends policy actions that can help states save lives. So it's not about the engineering or the roadway improvements. This is about legislation and rules and regulations that we have in place that can help us save lives and can bring benefits to the Missourians and benefits to the people who are visiting our state. So MoDOT, actually the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission, has had two legislative priorities for the last several years: primary safety belt law and strengthening our no texting law. We continue to support this because these are proven lifesavers, but unfortunately, they continue to fail in legislation. So not only do we need drivers to make those smart decisions, but we also need some stronger laws that can help us drive down these numbers and enforce good behaviors.
And their plan is definitely what I would say is a transformational discussion about how we as a country invest in infrastructure. It's very different than things we've seen in the past, but I think it's an important discussion that's going to be had in the Congress, and your voices need to be part of that discussion because we have to get this right. So they're basically saying if Missouri and Kansas City and the other stakeholders on a project come to the table with an investment, the federal government's going to basically help you give gap funding. Gone would be the days of just getting a federal grant and figuring out what to do with your federal money. This would actually be the federal government saying they want to take a step back in the investment on infrastructure and make state and local more of a player in bringing the money to the table. We've been funding highways in this country with 80% federal, 20% state. This proposal, as laid out, would be 20% federal, 80% state. Obviously a big difference.
We do not have the capital resources to fully replace a lot of the major bridges that we have in this state. Let's talk a little bit about the Rocheport Bridge. Rehabbing that bridge will force us to shut down one lane in each direction on I-70 for a minimum of 9 months. 9 months. That's the best case scenario. Best case scenario. So that's what it's going to look like. Now, on a good day in that traffic model, we're going to back up to Columbia. It's going to be a 3-hour delay in each direction on our good days. On our bad days, we can see the scenario where it's a 25-mile backup, 8 miles from Kingdom City, 8-hour delay. This is the price of inaction. Right here. This is real, and I'm telling you, this is coming right at us. This is 2019 or 2020. Right there. And everybody's going to say it's the Department of Transportation's fault. And I'm going to tell you, it's all of our fault. And the culprit is inflation. Inflation on an annual basis is never a crisis in any given year. But at $70 million a year, it's a hungry beast. And it's coming for all of us.
There's a change coming, right? When you take a driver out of the mobility service model, you really come down to two streams. Whether you're an Uber, a Lyft, an enterprise car share, whether you're a limo service, a taxi service, it's all kind of the same thing in an autonomous world in the future. So what we really see this mobility on demand doing is helping people integrate. I might take a bike share someplace to get to rail, and then I might take light rail, and then I might take a car share to get the last half hour of my trip, right? And that's really the future of mobility on demand. In an autonomous world, I've heard policymakers talk about the different ways it's going to arrive. And I think all options are on the table.
And one that hits home for me is mobility. My grandmother, she's in her 90s, very active lady, but she cannot leave her retirement community because she can't drive. I also have a disabled cousin who is my age and super smart and able-bodied, but he can't go anywhere without someone driving him. AVs will allow these folks, whether young, old, disabled, to get around and have some more freedom in their life, to enjoy their communities more, and get out and see more and have a better quality of life.
And outside of autonomous vehicles, electrification is probably our members' second biggest investment. It said in 2025 they're going to get to about $100 billion. But the problem we've seen hasn't been, can we make the vehicles? It hasn't been any hindrances as far as mandates go. It comes down to the customers. Some states, like the left coast, California, Oregon, Washington, they've seen some of this technology a little earlier, but we've seen that even then they've still had some problems taking on this technology and being familiarized with it.
We're seeing from a utility provider perspective, we're seeing an increase in the expected sales by 2025, and what are we going to do to meet that? Based on revenue projections, based on the increase of electric vehicles on the roadways, we're seeing a need for roughly, and this goes across the state, and I'll get into a little bit in Missouri, 5 million charge ports that will need to be required to support the 7 million vehicles we expect to see on the roadways in 2025. Across the United States right now, and these numbers have maybe changed since I last updated this presentation, 16,269 electric stations, 44,528 charging stations across the United States. Currently in Missouri, we have 339 stations and 1,474 charging outlets across Missouri. That's not going to cut it if we're going to meet the demand that's coming. So
where we are today is we have put together the public-private partnership. We're working closely with MoDOT. We have the engagement from Hyperloop One. We've selected an engineering firm to lead the feasibility study, and that's Black & Veatch in Kansas City. That engineering feasibility study is fully funded. Private money, not a single dollar of Missouri taxpayer money is going to fund this. And the study kicked off on Tuesday, February 13th with a phone call. We have our first in-person get-together coming up in about a week and a half, and is expected to last 7 to 9 months. That's why it costs so much money, I understand. So the result of this is that Hyperloop One CEO, and you can see this on the past slide, has said Missouri is now one of our top 5 options, if not one of the top 3 globally. That is an incredible position for Missouri to be in. I'll take questions at the end here, and one of the questions I can anticipate already is, really? Like, is this really going to happen? This sounds kind of far-fetched. It sounds like science fiction. The reality is the technology is there today. The companies that are commercializing the technology have plans to begin building routes in 2019. They hope to have the first legs of the first routes finished by the end of 2020. So this is not something for future generations. This is not something you're going to see 40 years from now. This is something that's happening incredibly fast. And the opportunity before us is tremendous. So.